There's no other market research podcast able to earn recognition in 2019 and 2020 as being named one of the best in the marketing research field. So we're proud to welcome you to one podcast that did earn that distinction. Research Business Daily Report is also the research industry's only daily research video blog. Enjoy today's edition and any others that you lend yourself to watch. And if you do, please consider supporting this research news video series. In fact, you can see on the screen right now exactly where to go if you'd like to do that. And stick with us to the end of today's video report. I'm Bob Lederer, and now in my 26th year as the respected voice in market research. Back in April 2020, Sports and Leisure Research Group President Jon Last launched his Back to Normal Barometer Study. He said it would constitute a continuous and forward-looking consumer pulsing effort that could inform decision-making by garnering a deeper drive into what it would take to get people back to normal. Well, Jon's been hard at work on that for over a year now, and 13 months after its inception, Jon's barometer has some well-focused thoughts about the short-term future of American businesses as they recover from the coronavirus. Today, we asked Jon to fill us in on trend lines for management and their plans for employees returning to a central office. Jon?
There's been, in the last couple of months in particular, we've seen a lot of organizations go back, but we've also seen even more prevalently a number of organizations that have finally made their announcement about what they're going to do. And in many of these cases, this whole concept of a hybrid model has really manifested itself in not only staggering when people are going to be present, certain groups of people in on certain days, but also a greater permissiveness to allow certain staff to work from home indefinitely. Initially, there was a real consideration that perhaps what the pandemic was teaching us was that we didn't necessarily need to be centralized, that a lot of work could get done effectively and efficiently in an at-home environment. But we've seen over time, again, particularly over the last 6 months or so, that there's been a greater recognition, particularly amongst employers, that some of the things that have been sacrificed, be it interpersonal relationships, mentoring, training, onboarding newer employees, has really created some costs that maybe were overlooked or a little bit more easily overlooked in the beginning. And that's kind of brought more and more organizations to recognize that the central location is certainly not going to go away. And I think part of what we're also seeing is a flexible situation. So in terms of, a lot of companies have kind of created these staggered environments where, you don't necessarily have everybody in at one time. So you're kind of creating some more of these shared spaces that downsize some of what's used because, for lack of a better term, the A team is in one day, the B team is in the next day. And there's not as many people that are there every day. So that's been one of the models that seems to have caught some real popularity among a number of the respondents that we've talked to. We asked a question just last month about basically how sensitive and responsive have organizations been to individuals' needs in terms of back to work and requirements in some cases to be home, whether kids are being homeschooled and need that attention and time. And the overarching conclusion has been that most employees have been fairly satisfied, if not very satisfied, by that sensitivity. The one other interesting phenomenon, again, kind of focusing from the employer standpoint initially, has been there had always been this assumption from the get-go, particularly with the initial effectiveness of work from home, that we were going to see a real reduction in space utilization. And in some of our work, specifically in the real estate sector, that was a real concern. What's interestingly transpired of late has been a recognition that some of how spaces are going to be configured may actually require, in certain cases, more space utilization to facilitate social distancing, to kind of move away from what had been an office trend of many years of creating these centralized hubs with everybody close together for collaborative purposes. Now, when you interject some of the longer term concerns about safety protocols and hygiene, that physical space model just doesn't seem to be anywhere near as popular as what it had been, and organizations are beginning to really reconsider whether that's the proper way to situate people within the footprint. So it'll be interesting to see how that manifests itself, again, when you have less employees to begin with, or the staggered situation that I talked about a moment ago. I think the net is still going to be less space utilization, but it may not be as dramatic or negative as perhaps people perceived it initially.
Jon Last will join us again tomorrow, and at that point he will share what the Back to Normal Barometer shows about research vis-a-vis availability of individuals as respondents. That wraps up Research Business Daily Report for today. Now, of course, we're always thankful for any views we get, and so keep watching us. But because each day we try to bring you a news item, an insight, or a commentary not found anywhere else, well, after digesting any particular video and then groups of them, we hope that you will appreciate us enough to consider becoming an RBDR Patreon supporter, which you can do by visiting RBDR's exclusive crowdfunding platform at patreon.com/RBDR. Hoping that you have a good research day today and that it'll continue into tomorrow. We will see you then, and until then, stay safe.